Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. Welcome to Chuck on Bucks on an abnormal time to pop on for a live, but dinner's not ready. Dinner's not ready. I did not record anything yesterday. Took the day off. It's rare that I don't record anything in a day. I think well, number one, we had the playoff game, right? And that was stunning and kind of awesome. By the way, remember all last offseason, the Oregon fans told us that the reason Ohio State beat them so bad in the Rose Bowl was because of that extremely long layoff they had. I don't ever want to hear that excuse again. Not after what we just saw last night out of Indiana. And congrats to them. Looks like strong potential for year number 3 in a row with another Big Ten championship, which is pretty amazing, man. Pretty amazing for those of us who have been knee deep in the sport for the last 25 years. But did want to pop on today, discuss some stuff. We've got some visitors. We've got some more defections. We've got some people getting a little uneasy, even people who are kind of down with the new strategy, as seeing a lot out, not a lot in. And the conversations we have today could be totally a moot talking point 2 weeks from now, right? Could be totally moot. Could go on a run where we see 3 signees, 6 signees, 8 signees, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, a little panic for nothing. Or there could be a little bit more of a bigger issue here at play. Not sure yet. Can't say for sure. We don't know yet. All we know is what we see in the constant barrage of negative news and not a lot of positive news is uneasy. It's very uneasy. Hemorrhaging football players is an uneasy feeling. And not all of it is an issue to, of a player coming in asking for money and Ohio State saying, nah, you're not worth that. We can get somebody who can do better. Some of it surely is Ohio State wanting to clear the books on an underperforming player and getting that money so that they can spend that smarter elsewhere. And that's good, because when we woke up a week ago, Ohio State operated on a totally different model of doing business, a totally different model. When we woke up a week ago, Ohio State was a program whose stated goal, practical goal, proven goal of roster construction was to recruit high school talent, develop that high school talent until they became producers at Ohio State, and see them off to the NFL. And every year, bring in about 5 to 6 transfers that were either upgrades or plugging a hole, and then a few more guys to bring the total to about 11. And those few more guys would be guys like a Justin Terry, who was a potential developmental guy a few years down, or a Will Kazmarek, who could add a little something to tight end. Not a big name guy, but somebody who can add a little something, but have a couple years of eligibility. And on the flip side of that, they would lose on average 17.5. We talked about this before the portal, and I thought that this would go under. I was very, very wrong on that. 17.5 guys would head out of the program, and almost exclusively, since we've been involved in this thing, those guys heading out of the program would be guys who had no clear path to the field, usually had been jumped by a guy younger than them with another talented crop of freshmen coming in. And they realized, all right, look, got some experience at Ohio State. I'll be desirable on the market, which is another issue we're having, is how desirable guys from Ohio State are on the open market. And those guys would head out to the portal, and we would look at the end, and it almost felt like you didn't really lose anybody, because many of those guys you had kind of already written off in your head as guys who would eventually be contributors on the team, and you wished them well, and that was the end of it. And that is not the case this year. Not the case this year. And you just finished recruiting a class of 28 guys. The class of 28 guys was recruited to follow the model that I just described, that Ohio State's been operating on forever. And all of a sudden, as we sit here and talk, less than a week and a half later, there is a new model. There's a new model at Ohio State, and it was forced on them. They didn't want to do this, and they were able to hold off on having to do this. Having to do this. Did I just say that? They were they were able to hold this off because of the culture at Ohio State, because of how powerful what Ohio State offered was to guys, because guys would take less money, and because Ohio State was able to stack a roster loaded with talent from old dudes to young dudes because of the culture, because guys were afraid to be the dude sticking out like a sore thumb, going in and demanding more money and having to go face the other dudes in the locker room. Like, what? That it was a real thing. You go back to the national championship team and picture those seniors on that team and dudes coming in like this happening right now. Like nobody was going to be the one to break that seal. But as soon as it happened, the floodgates opened and it was off to the races. Everybody went in with their hand out. And Ohio State smartly, in my opinion, pivoted, and they pivoted fast. And I commend them for pivoting as fast as they did, because the absolute worst thing would have been to try to hold on to the old way of business and bang your head against the wall, because it can't happen. Once that pressure, that little bit of shame, that peer pressure to keep in line, once that breaks, it's over. It's over, and they pivoted fast, and we are seeing a transition happen right before our eyes that feels not very good. Doesn't feel good at all. And that's what it is, man. That's what it is. The worst thing to have on your roster right now are things that we used to absolutely love having on the roster 2 weeks ago. That's 4-star players who come into the program that you follow in recruiting and you really like, guys that year one, they don't play much. Year two, they develop a little and contribute a little. And then year three, they become a starter. All the while, it's still a blue chipper, so he's making money. Those guys aren't good in this system. Those guys are the enemy. That's bad for business. A 5-star player, that guy needs to come in, contribute a bit year one, and make you feel confident that he's going to start in year two. And if he isn't living up to that, that's bad money on your roster. Got to go. Low-level 4-star guys that you have on your roster that maybe underperformed and are not willing to take a bit of a pay cut for the following year, not good to have on the roster. Bad money. Those are all types of dudes in this system, in this model, that are bad for business. And it's callous, and it is full of mercenary style feel, and it's not the way most people have enjoyed. I mean, anybody watching this show is somebody who follows this stuff very closely. And part of the thing that we've always really enjoyed about college football is many of you watch recruiting shows with me, watching these guys come in, grow up, leave the program, and carry on the Buckeye pride into the NFL. And we follow them through there as well. And they go and rep the program, and it just feels good. It's part of the thing we love about it. There will still be those guys. It will not be anywhere near as many, but it'll be plenty of guys who come in on a 1-year deal and they finish the program, come in and do a year. And those guys can feel just as good. You watch Quinn Sean and root for Will Howard in the NFL to be successful. It's the same type deal. It doesn't ever feel the same to me. Maybe those guys feel a little bit tighter with you because they were national champions. It won't always feel like that. But we're looking forward to an annual roster build of at least 50 to 60% of the roster. And that's going to feel a lot different. And what we're going through right now is essentially the purge of bad contracts. And this will also result in an entirely different recruiting strategy, which I will talk about tomorrow or another day, not today. But we've seen plenty of guys who did not look like they were going to start next year. They were making money on the roster, exit stage left, somehow commanding more money, or in some cases, Ohio State not wanting to renew that contract. And then we've seen guys who looked like they were going to be making money in 26 and were potential starters who wanted starter money in 2026 because they were potential or probable starters, which put Ohio State in a position where, do I have total faith that this guy with a very high ceiling is going to come in and fill this starting job at a high level based on what he has shown me so far. And we can put Aaron Scott, Bryce West into these categories. And now we can throw Fahim Delane into that category as well. Guys who played a little bit, high promise, really high ceiling, but in 2026 will cost you starter money. Are they worth that starter money? Or is that more of a gamble than the sure thing you can get out of the portal because you're looking at his starting tape and you know that he can do the job? You don't know that these guys can do the job. You might think they can, but you're not sure. And they might have a higher ceiling. But with that guy, you might know, I feel I'm 90% sure what I'm going to get out of this guy because he's done it in another Power 4 league. I can see his statistics. I can talk to him. He's all grown up. He's 22 years old. What's the better way to spend your money in this new system? It's usually that older guy. But what we're dealing with now is the initial wiping out of these bad type deals and a lot of these guys that we're going to have to get used to. Well, number one, a lot of these guys won't be even recruited anymore, in my opinion. I think you're going top tier guys. You are investing in those guys, and you are investing in free stars, guys that want to come in and try to develop at Ohio State that you like, that you think you've done a good evaluation on. It's the guys in the middle, the guys that would traditionally be on the 2 years development, starter year 3. Those guys all cost money now. And that portion there, I think, is going to be totally wiped out of the recruiting class moving forward. Like, that's not good money to have those guys on the roster. And we'll see the 5-star guys get paid, maybe even a little better to land them. But buddy, you better be dependent on. I'm like, you need to come in and really show it, or you got to go. And that's kind of how recruiting is going to look, in my opinion. But overnight, it feels like the strategy has totally pivoted. And you look at a guy like Fahim Delane, who, I think a lot of people, we've all talked about Fahim and been very excited about Fahim. Fahim, Matt Guerreri's number one safety target in the class of 2025. Fahim, a guy who hasn't played much. I don't know how many snaps he played this year. It couldn't have been more than 55, 60 snaps, I believe. And essentially going to start with Jalen McClain next year is what it seemed like. Now, Jalen, an entrenched starter and a vet. Jalen beat out Malik Hartford, and Malik now in the portal as well. And when Malik hit the portal, it seemed for sure to me that was all right. Fahim going to be good to go. But I wasn't quite thinking it through yet in terms of how this has gone. If I'd have thought about it a little harder, he actually fits the exact same mold as Bryce West and Aaron Scott. The exact same mold. A guy that you're not 100% sure, you think you know, and you could spend that starter money on him, or you could go get a guy that's proven. And one thing is for sure, what we've seen here is every single one of these guys who are they're all represented by agents, like all of these guys that are going to be starters, those agents are hustling for more money. That's without a doubt. And we didn't see that in years past. And that is putting Ohio State in the position to have to make these decisions. If Fahim Delane was, next year going to play on what he made this past year, there's no reason to get his money off the books. You can roll the dice on him. You can roll the dice on bringing somebody maybe not quite so good in. The Quincy Porter situation, a little bit of a different story, as I think that was more Ohio State, knowing full and well, like you had Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan who were vying for his services out of high school. He was a later blossoming 5-star. And because of that, it didn't really drive his price up like some of the 5-stars we've seen recently. So he basically played last year on a bit of a lower range for a 5-star 6'3" big body wide receiver. And Ohio State knew when they went all in on Chris Henry Jr. for a considerably amount more than Quincy got, that it had the potential of exploding and losing Quincy. And they were willing to do that because they believed in Chris, the prospect, better. So it was totally worth it for them to do that. And it goes bad with Quincy, and Quincy's gone, and there it is. But they got the better prospect in their mind because Quincy at that point still a prospect, hadn't shown you anything. And then they took that money and went and got experienced Devin McEwen out of UTSA, who's going to come in, and on we keep rolling. But it sucks. It sucks. It's something we got to get used to now. It's a more callous version, right? Feel like you can't get as attached to people. Like this class of 2025, I started this show less than 2 years ago. Class of 2025, I started in the off season, and it was nothing but recruiting talk. And I liked to do the show, so I wanted to do as much as I could. And to do that, I'd talk a lot of recruiting. And I got to know a lot of this class of 2025, and it was my favorite class because of that. Not just that, but I loved the talent. I loved the evaluations. I loved Jarquez Carter. I love Jarquez Carter. I was so thrilled about him. Ohio State's evaluation of him out of Newberry High School in Florida. I thought that they just killed it. And there was, of course, you guys with me? Apologize. Had a little internet hiccup there. But I thought they did a great job, and they beat everybody on Jarquez Carter. And I thought Jarquez Carter, who was, listen, this is a kid who rep 225 32 times coming in as a freshman, which was as many times as Donovan Jackson rep 225 that led the team on the national championship team. So physically a little smaller at 6'2", 285, 290. But Larry Johnson likes those kind of guys. And I thought this year was going to be a year with him and Edric where it still didn't make me feel quite as good as I didn't feel totally confident. I didn't feel totally confident in those two and felt like another 3-tech would be great. In fact, I thought that if you retained Kenyatta, I would have rather seen another 3-tech brought in over an edge, over a guy like a Chaz or someone that has been talked about at edge, because I just didn't feel too comfortable in the two of them. So what's Ohio State do? Well, you got a visit from Francis Brew out of Pitt, who is a guy who has produced at Pitt, an Ohio guy, by the way, produced at Pitt, the same frame as Jarquez Carter, but he's ready to roll right now. And he's coming in for a visit, so you let Jarquez go. And if you sign a guy like that, basically what you did was you upgraded Jarquez. You accelerated the timeline on Jarquez Carter. Instead of this 6'2", 285-pound twitched up defensive tackle who might be ready to really contribute in 27 or be a starter in 27, you just said, all right, we're going to take him off the roster and we're going to add this guy that's ready right now. Same frame, same type of guy. We can see the production. We'll add him right now. And it's the proper move in this system that they're operating now. It is the proper move. Now, where people are getting a little bit, understandably, in my opinion, nervous is, okay, I understand the system. I see what's going on. I get how you have to go about it. It sucks to see this happen. Hopefully we'll only need to see it have to happen like this once, where it's this much of a purge, but not quite seeing the guys coming in the way that you would anticipate here, at least at the speed, not quite hearing about as many visits that would line up with what the stated goal is here. However, they did a great job keeping the Devin McEwen visits. There was no leaks on that one. The Devin McEwen visit, nobody. And there obviously much more potential for that to happen moving forward with plenty of these guys that they ultimately end up signing, right? So that's the way it feels now. That might not be reality. But if it is, if it is reality that you see all these guys head out, and I haven't even named, since my last show, we've also seen a couple more guys leave. Max Roy off the roster. And again, that's a guy in Max Roy who's a third or fourth year projection defensive tackle out of St. Joe's. And that is almost like if you bring in a guy as a third or fourth year projection, that is a free star. That's got to be a free star. And by that, I mean, that's a guy who's on the roster who just wants to take the absolute minimum and develop at Ohio State to potentially become a starter. And those guys will still exist. They'll still be recruited. But Max Roy didn't come in as that. So those type of guys on that 4-year plan, like, go ahead and get paid somewhere if you can get paid. But here, to us, we're not in the market of paying guys like that. That's the attitude in this system here. So those kind of guys off the roster. But if we don't see, when it's all said and done, if we see roster holes, right? If we see holes where guys left and they weren't replaced, then there's an issue. Obviously, there's an issue. What would that issue be? Some people saying they think the issue is lack of funds. Oh, we've seen a lot of freed up money. We didn't see a ton of retention dollars spent. The only guy who may potentially come back as a senior and forego the draft is going to be Kenyatta. So you didn't have to pay a bunch of money in retention there. The only guy that we saw who was a producer in 2025 that you had to, pay out a bit for was Bo Jackson. And gosh, man, that was almost you almost freed that money up too. Which that one makes me so happy because amongst all this chaos, when you talk about, all right, here's a guy from Cleveland who came in, wanted to be a Buckeye, took less money to be a Buckeye as a freshman, performed his butt off for you. And to lose that guy after year one, when you've been able to free up all this other money, that one would have really stunk. And when I recorded the video, the last video I did about that whole situation and kind of what that one represented, because we hadn't seen one of those yet. We hadn't seen a producer to that level leave based on a contract negotiation. We've seen like every other kind of scenario, hadn't seen that one. And at the time when I recorded that, I had a bad feeling about it. So I felt like if I'd have recorded that on Friday morning after the message that Bo sent me when he saw my show, would have been even worse. The feeling that like the tone would have been even different, but cooler heads prevailed in the end. And that's absolutely what should happen. And I always have when it comes to young guys, I got a big question with these negotiations. You got families and young guys who are very inexperienced at this. You've got representation who stands to make a lot more money every time they enter the portal, which means usually the player best for his development probably staying where he's at. But for the agent, if it's best for him to leave, what happens behind closed doors between the agent and the school? And does the family and does the player know everything that's being said in those negotiations and sign off on it? I would bet not always. And I would bet, I'm not saying that's the case here, but I would bet there are definitely cases where agents intentionally try to sabotage a negotiation with an existing school by making outrageous demands or pissing people off intentionally or leaking that they're shopping the player's services elsewhere before they've even, started the negotiation with the school. I would bet there's a lot of that going on to purposely sabotage so that they can get the player into the portal and they can make their 20%, and I'm just throwing that number out there because that is a number. That's not the number, but they're capped at like 5% in the NFL. And I often wonder how much the players are in tune to those negotiations. And I often wonder, if you're the coach or the GM, what's it like when that's going on? When you got a contentious situation with an agent and you still got the player, like he's coming in to work out, like what is the discourse there with the player? Are you hands off? Does the position coach ever go up to him and say, "Hey, let's talk for a second here. Are you aware of this?" You know what I mean? Like what, it's all such a new world in college football. And we're talking about guys that are so young, so young. It just adds this whole nother layer of, this is screwed up, man. This just feels screwed up. But extremely happy to have Bo back. When we talk about the potential of guys that, you know, may end up leaving off the roster, guys that come in from the roster out of the portal, if the numbers don't add up in the end, what will have been the reason? And some will say money, right? Money, there wasn't enough money. But it feels to me like you freed up a ton of money. What I also believe is last year, the payroll was pretty big. And this year, you've got the house settlement in effect. It's in full effect. One of the big fears in the offseason was the way Ohio State was handling the house settlement as compared to other schools. And there are some people who thought by the end of the recruiting class that Ohio State had relaxed their stance on that. I did not necessarily believe that. There were several of those guys in the run to the end of that recruiting class, with about 10 guys added after summer. Several of them were, league minimum type guys. And the ones that weren't, well, you still got revenue share to factor their dollars into the revenue share. So just the fact that it might be a guy like a Jay Timmons, who was a highly rated guy, well, it doesn't mean you need NIL to bring those guys in. You can factor that into the rev share. My thought was we would know at the end of the transfer portal class if Ohio State really relaxed on the last time we heard them talk. They were following this to the letter of the law. Of course, everyone's going to say that. Nobody's been as public and having to talk about it as Ohio State as to how they're going to handle it. And that's because Ohio State decided to have Ohio State AD, whether it was his personal decision or decision as a university, to kind of be the face of athletic directors in support of this house settlement. Now, we've seen some things recently from the CDC. The CDC, the enforcement wing of the house settlement, they just released a memo the other day. And essentially their memo was, we see what some of you are doing, and some of you should expect to hear from us very soon. Now, that's tough talk. So far, we've not seen them do anything because they're still getting things together. Still just 4 full-time employees to police the entire country, as far as I know. And what are schools doing? They're doing what, look, I've covered this thing extensively. Before this fight even was resolved, spelled out exactly what they would do. And sure enough, this is exactly what the schools are doing if you allowed collective to operate as the business. And the CDC put up a brief fight to the house settlement lawyers. No, you can't do that. And then they caved. And the minute that happened, you created a massive loophole that the CDC is saying they're going to attempt to police. I don't know how they do it successfully. And then you had a contract leaked from LSU to Brendan Sorsby, a $3.5 million open-ended NIL contract that he signed with their Buckeye Sports Group, right? So he signs it didn't sign it. He ends up going to Texas Tech, but this was his contract. If he were to sign their Buckeye Sports Group, their version of Buckeye Sports Group, gives him $3.5 million. They cut him another $1 million in revenue share. Well, you can't technically cut that $3.5 million because all those deals. So if I cut you $3.5 million from my collective, I have to have the supporting NIL deals that make up that $3.5 million that are ready to go through the NIL Go to be approved. And if they don't get approved, the player's ineligible. That's how the rules are written. But if I am that collective, I can now make up as much nonsense gigs for this player as I want. It can be social media promotions. It can be I'm recording him for my media company and paying him deals like that. He's doing meet and greets, autograph sessions. He's doing all this stuff, and I'm piping through the deals just to get him submitted through the NIL Go. And that's what's going on. But I do think there are also programs who are not intending on following this at all. I think there's a couple where it's pretty clear. I think that's USC and Texas Tech. And we've already seen Texas Tech try to talk every Texas school into not signing the document that says, we agree to the rules. We're not going to sue the CDC for punitive actions. We're not going to sue them. And there's a thought that everybody needs to sign this for the CDC to take effect, for them to actually enforce the rules. That's not true. They're still going to attempt to enforce them regardless. But when they attempt to go ahead and punish someone, if they hadn't signed that document and they sue, they will likely win, because we all know this is a house of cards, which means if you are the school who is playing by these rules and others aren't, you're going to be way behind everybody, which was everybody's biggest fear. And as we're looking at the way this is playing out right now, that fear is getting bigger. That's all I'm saying. 2 weeks from now, everybody may be at total ease. But when you see a lot of money come free, not a lot of guys coming in, that's why everybody's getting a little worked up here. If you're someone saying, hey, they're going to sign a bunch of guys, I'm not worried about it. That's what people are worried about. So that's where we stand. So far, Ohio State, from the transfer portal, brought in Devin McEwen, the wide receiver from UTSA, who will be an immediate contributor. And that's great. Quality wide receiver who's put up production. And this is the model. This is a guy who has 3 years a contributor, comes in his final year, his money year. Remember, we used to kind of look at these guys somewhat the way we looked at recruiting. Like, if you could get 2 years of eligibility from a transfer, that was ideal. Not anymore. We want them in their money year, ready to go to the NFL, as old as possible, with as much college production as possible. That's the new strategy. And that's been adopted for exactly 10 days now. So he fits the mold perfectly. You bring in Christian Allegra, the linebacker from Wisconsin. Same deal. Guy who is produced for 3 years at Wisconsin. Money year, bring him in. Perfect signing. And in addition to that, you got 2 years out of the best player that you got, in my opinion. And that's Big Walk. John Walker from UCF, who is the defensive tackle you're bringing to take over for K-Mac. And that is the tier 1A signing here of these guys. You needed that guy. You got that guy. So that was a big one. But as things go on, he also got the tight end from Ohio, which I shouldn't say it like it's such a nonsense. You know what? I honestly, when it comes to paying roster certain positions, tight end to me, like, I am so fine with a Will Kazmarek style tight end that doesn't eat up money every year for the rest of the time. When I hear Lincoln, or when I hear Brock Williams, the number 2 tight end in the country, is down to Ohio State and Georgia, all I think about is the amount of money that's going to go to that 240-pound 5-star tight end that is inevitably going to end up transferring out in this new model. But even if it wasn't a guy that was going to transfer out, like, I don't feel like the difference between a good tight end, a quality tight end, and a better tight end is enough to justify that. I don't think it's a position that you should be investing top tier dollars in. So anyway, Mason Williams, you got another tight end coming in from Northwestern. I forget his name. 6'3", 250 tight end in year number 4, 2-year producer. So that's great as well. Definitely going to be relying on a couple of freshmen next year, even if you get Kenyatta Jackson back. Freshman and second-year guys on the defensive line at edge going to be playing a lot. It's interesting, though, when we talk about guys that on the defensive line entering their second year. Zion Grady, who played about 100 snaps this year. Clearly, they wanted Zion back. So that speaks very well of him, right? I think that should make you even more excited about him because he fits the same mold as Aaron Scott and Bruce West. But he's coming back. Well, fingers crossed. There's still 6 days that this thing's open. But, I think it's funny because I made these graphics up just a little over a week ago, looking at defensive tackle, and I just kind of jotted down, all right, here's everybody that we're working with here. Here's guys that could potentially portal out or enter the draft. And gosh, already quite a bit different. K-Mac gone. Will Smith Jr. there. Eric Mensah gone. Max Roy gone. Ruff and Perez, 2 freshmen. And then Edric Houston, Jarquez Carter, your number 2-3 tech, gone. Damari Simeon, incoming freshman who potentially could play a little bit. Jason Moore, who some people have hopes still that he may potentially pop. I've long ago given up hope of that. Trajan Odom, who is honestly a guy in my eyes who is, a 3rd or 4th year developmental guy, which is why I am, speculated as a potential to exit the program. I'll tell you one position that really makes us look here at linebacker, being able to add Christian Alliero, you didn't lose anybody. Like, that feels good. With Peyton Pierce, Alliegro, Pettijohn, and TJ, that feels pretty good. Sincere coming in as a freshman. You didn't lose Garrett Stover, which, some people be like, Garrett Stover, whatever. But, I like a guy from Ohio who's a team guy and an absolute special teams demon being in that linebacker room. That's good. Eli Lee sticks around. I like that as well. Kid from Akron. Big linebacker. Outside of Alliegro, he's your biggest linebacker. Then you got Rembert and Sana, the freshman, along with Sincere. At corner, this is where we started. Well, this was revised right after Bryce transferred. Jermaine Matthews, Devin Sanchez, Aaron Scott now gone. Matter of fact, I revised this. Hang on. There we go. Jermaine Matthews, Devin Sanchez. So Jermaine didn't light it up like a lot of people thought he might this past year. Let's hope it gets better next year. Devin, he showed you that, yeah, he's going to be a guy. It's going to take a little bit of time. Clearly got the raw skills, but it didn't pop like we, had hoped. We saw some other corners that were really great in their freshman year. A couple of those other guys in the top 5. And Devin played good. He was solid. I don't have any worries about him being a starter. I think he'll continue to get better, but it wasn't, he didn't jump on the scene and immediately go, oh my gosh, he's everything, we hoped for. Jay Timmons, incoming freshman. Jordan Thomas, incoming freshman, who just played the Navy All-American game. Mark Givler and I did a show the other day from practice, and he was down there in San Antonio for the game. Jordan Thomas was really playing well, brings a ton of physicality, which we love. Then you got Jordan Woods, who was a total project, and Bryce West, Aaron Scott Jr. gone. I'm missing somebody on that one. Who am I missing? Miles Lockhart, who is a nickel. That's not a guy that I think is really in line to play. When we look at, where's safety? Here's safety. So you had Jalen McClain, Fahim Delane, Malik Hartford. That was your top 3. Fahim Delane and Malik Hartford now wiped off that board. So now McClain, freshman Blaine Bradford, total stud, but a true freshman. Leroy Roker right now is your guy. It's Jalen and Leroy Roker, and you're hoping that Blaine comes up fast. Then you got freshman Simeon Caldwell, Kamari Bing, second year Deshaun Stewart, and that is an area now that needs a portal guy unless you trust Leroy Roker to be your starter. And if you let Fahim Delane walk to say, all right, Leroy, you're the guy, that's not an upgrade. That's a downgrade. So definitely that's an area of need that you better be bringing somebody in or you're essentially conceding that we just got worse at safety, right? Wide receiver. This was the initial list here. Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Innes, both coming back. Quincy Porter, gone. Chris Henry Jr. coming in. Mylan Graham, gone. Phil Bell. I like Phil Bell. Really like Brock Boyd. And then Jaquaden Guilford, guys. Wow. Jaquaden Guilford has dominated down at the Navy All-American Bowl. He won the top player 3 days in a row at practice. And Chris Henry Jr. is down there with him. That says a ton. And there is big time potential for him year one now. Like official. There already was. There really is now. If he's down there dominating 3 days in a row, which is what Mark told me that after day one. And then we saw he won the 247 Alpha Dog. So that is great news. At running back, Jackson, Isaiah West, Jimmy DePeoples leaves, Favor Aki, Turbo Rogers, Sam Dixon leaves as well. And you got another visit with Mekhi Frazier. Mekhi Frazier out of Michigan State. McKinney, Texas kid. I think he just finished year two. Was a teammate of Riley Pettijohn at McKinney, Texas. Was a lower end blue chip running back. 5'10", 215. Got some stuff about him. If you were to say, like, let's say you got him, Isaiah, and Bo, you feel infinitely better about coming in with that rather than last year coming in with your top starters being CJ Donaldson and James Peoples. At least I do. So Mekhi, good back. Can you pay him now? Can you afford to pay him now? Or was that the backup plan if you lost Bo? And even if you did lose Bo, Isaiah West and Mekhi Frazier, to me, good enough, right? Like I feel pretty good about that with the potential of an explosive coming from an emergence of potentially Turbo, potentially Legend Bay. Have we covered every position? Current defensive line, not quite up to date as we've since, and I'm sorry, I am having a hard time keeping these up to date because it just is changing every damn day. But at edge, we're waiting on the news from Kenyatta Jackson. Waiting on the Kenyatta news. I think he stays. Epi Satanile, after year one, he's gotten a lot bigger. He just might be ready to pop. At 3 tech, Eddie Houston, Jarquez Carter now gone. We talked about that. John Walker and Will Smith, your top 2 1 techs. Below them, Eric Musa already gone. Max Roy is gone. And then on the other edge, Kari Wilder and Ziggy Grady. You like that a lot, I think. I mean, young dudes, but my opinion is Kari comes in and doesn't play as much as Zion Grady played this year, but comes in and plays a ton. The two of them going to be your guys there. Bo Atkinson, we'll see if he sticks around, if he ends up in the portal. He definitely underplayed what you paid him in the transfer portal. Does he take a pay cut to stick around for 2026? Who knows? So, other visits we had recently. You had James Smith from Alabama and his teammate, Quay Rasaw. They played high school ball together, college ball, and they are apparently a package deal. How sweet. Get the hell out of here with your package deal, dude. That's the cheesiest thing I've ever heard in the transfer portal era. We're a package deal. This here's the that's not the guy. Where's my dog? Did I not load him up? Didn't load him up. Let me see if we can find him quickly. If we can't, we'll roll on. We will roll on. I'll get to your comments here in a few. I hope you guys have put a question mark if it's something you wanted me to answer, because I'll get to them. But this is the dog right here. Francis Brewood from Pitt. When we look at him statistically, it's better stuff than Edric, and him and Edric together would be really, really nice. Nice veteran dude. He's actually got 2 years of eligibility, which is good. because this is a guy you would want to keep around when we look at the depth and the youth now, having lost a couple of defensive tackles to the portal. So he's a dog, and hopefully the Bucs can land him to pair him next to Big John Walker at 6'4", 324. And that would be your new, I believe, starting duo at 1 tech and 3 tech. So that's where we're at. Let's get to the comments section. Ryan Eames says the sunshine pumping needs to stop, Chuck. Are you saying I'm sunshine pumping? Are you guys saying that to me? Listen, I think I have been as rational and cool as I can be. I love to look. The reason I didn't record anything yesterday is because I was just as angry as everybody else. But I'm trying to look at this as if I'm sitting in the room and coming up with the plan here. All right, here's what the hand we've been dealt. What's the plan? It is true that the lack of guys coming in is concerning, but it also may be totally a concern totally alleviated in a week, right? That's all true. So remember, you're just writing a comment. I got something here that lives on the internet that somebody could clip and be like, look at this idiot freaking out. And a week later, Ohio State landed 6 guys and he looks like a boner, right? I don't want to look like a boner. I got to play it cool. I agree. It's concerning that there aren't as many guys coming in. I agree with that. No doubt about it. I'm not, and I've never been called a sunshine pumper, maybe a couple times, but only by really negative people. Really negative people. Who is the Buckeyes' biggest cash cow? I assume you're talking donor. Ohio State is lacking that dude. And it potentially become a big time problem. We need somebody to Ohio State has always been, like, for instance, after Michigan 2023, that really motivated the collective of big donors, right? The pool of them. That happened. And I think the best thing right now would be if we saw Michigan go on a run signing a bunch of top tier transfers. I think that would be the best thing for us. No doubt about it. Fisherman, what's up, buddy? Imagine that NIL goes under Ohio State and then it's trash. Administration will kill the program in this era. Kyle says firing Bjork won't fix the problem. And when we talk about Bjork, we got to remember that Bjork is the point man for a lot of people making decisions on this, right? Are there some aspects of Ross Bjork that make me think he personally wanted to get in front of the House settlement and be someone who is in support of that? Yeah, I think so. But as far as how Ohio State's handling this, that is not just a strictly Ross Bjork decision. Dave, there we go. Let's talk some fun news, Dave. My buddy Greenshield, the Ducks got beat down again, and it's something fun, right? Caleb is talking to somebody, telling him to take scarlet glasses off. Something is really wrong. Clearly, he's not talking to me. Here we go. We don't hear this one much. Aaron thinks that Mark Pantoni is holding Ohio State football back. Now, I will agree that it is just because someone has an excellent track record does not mean that when something changes drastically, they're 100% going to make the right decision. Just because someone is the godfather of their field doesn't mean that they're not sometimes make a wrong decision when you pivot on how to go about things. What it usually means is if they do, you trust that they'll pivot and correct it when they see things aren't right. So if Pantoni makes a mistake, he'll, I have faith, recognize it and fix it. I'm not saying he is making a mistake because, again, I don't think we're going to be able to judge this fairly for another 2-3 weeks. Does it feel like crap now? Absolutely. What strategy is there, Chuck? All right, I'll explain it again. Here's the strategy. You can, number one, you've got to clear money off the books. Have to clear it off the books. And the money that is cleared off the books are guys that will not be contributing in 2026 because this is now an annual build for 50% of the roster. An annual build for 50, honestly, to 70% of the roster. And that's just the way it is. Ohio State's not any longer building 25% to 50% from recruiting every year and a couple 10, 11 transfer portal pieces. This is going to be much more transfer portal guys. And we will continue to see it more and more that direction until something changes. So it's an annual build. You clear off the young guys that are eating up money. You have a faster trigger on getting rid of guys that are eating up money who are not performing. It's a more calloused approach. And then you go bring in guys who, just like we saw with Christian Allegro, just like we saw with Devin McEwen, guys that are production guys, 3-4 years of production. Every year their production's gone up and they're in their money year. I expected we would have seen more of them signed by now. I still expect if this goes how it should, we will see plenty more of those guys by when this is all said and done. That's the plan. That's the plan. That's the strategy. The strategy in recruiting will also be you no longer bring in guys who are 4-star guys that cost you money year one, they cost you money year two, and then you expect them to start in year three. That's done. They're over. That is money right there that will go to the portal. So we see a whole section of guys that we're used to watching come in and develop and eventually start at Ohio State wiped off. They're done. It is high-level 5-stars, top-tier 4-stars, guys that you are going to audition year one, and they better show you year one and make you confident enough that they can start year two or they're gone. And free stars, guys who are willing to come in for the league minimum, which I'm just calling the league minimum, the Ohio State minimum. They're willing to come in for that and develop at Ohio State, and you'll get some of those guys that eventually hit, and you'll have to decide, are they worth paying to keep? That's the strategy. Ohio State has a good foundation to do this, better than most, right? I mean, even we look at the teams that are doing this really, really well, like Indiana, they still, even this year, the top guys they got in their class, they're not guys that you are going to expect to make them confident in year one that they're going to be starters year two. So Ohio State's able to get those guys. Now that'll get better for Indiana, but when you look at Chris Henry Jr., when you look at Kari Wilder, like these are game wreckers, man. We get those guys. You look at a Blaine Bradford, an opportunity here to be a potential game wrecker. All right. Aaron says we just missed out on Chaz Coleman for what? I'll explain. Chaz Coleman does not fit the mold. I love Chaz. Did an entire video on how pissed off I was that they missed out on Chaz in the recruiting cycle. Love Chaz. Chaz goes out and does exactly what I thought he would as a true freshman and shows everybody he's that kind of athlete. But what he hasn't shown are a couple things. Number one, he has not yet shown huge production. So there is still a question. Can he hold up? Can he show that production? Question number two, are you willing to pay top tier dollars for Chaz in 2026 to be 75% of Chaz Coleman, only for him to be a free agent and need $2 million before he goes and has his real big year in 2027? Or is it better to go get Damon Wilson, who's about to have his best year, might not have the ceiling of Chaz, but you got production that you've seen that you can count on for the same amount or a little less money? In this scenario, it's always better to go get the guy in his money year with more production. Always. In this scenario that I believe that they have adopted and pivoted to immediately. So that's why you don't get Chaz. Because there's a chance Chaz he's a top 10 pick at the end of this year. That's what he shows you. Like, he's that caliber of dude. There's also a chance he has a disappointing year. Probably not going to happen. The odds are less likely for Damon Wilson, who you just saw put together in the mighty SEC a massive season. So that's why. Am I way behind you guys? Oh my gosh, I am way behind you guys on the comments. I didn't realize how long I've been talking. Oh, we got some super chats to get to. Buckeye man, thank you so much, buddy. So we don't have the money to compete in the NIL era. No, I don't think that's it. I think this is, if you don't see the guys brought in, it's not an issue of not having the money. It's true that we don't have the amount of, well, for one, when we say have the money, Ohio State has ebbs and flows of money based on how aggressively they're seeking the money and how motivated donors are. Other schools, I believe, that are at the, that have the billionaire guy, it's, we need this, and they go get this. So, sometimes they'll be told no, but Ohio State has to be a little more strategic about it. But we have clearly seen Ohio State be willing to go spend big money, no doubt. If we don't see Ohio State sign a bunch of guys in the transfer portal that match what we see out of Christian Alliegro and Devin McEwen, if we don't see several more of those types coming in at safety, at corner, at edge, like, we should be seeing multiple more of those guys. If we don't see that, in my opinion, it's not lack of money. It's adherence to the house settlement rules without using the loophole that I've explained 100 times and don't want to get into again. That's what it'll be. Hockey Kid 4100, thank you so much for the $4.99. Something is going on that we don't know about, Chuck. With what Carter's mom said, and Mylan just liked to tweet talking about stuff going on behind the scenes. Now, I did not see what Carter's mom said. I did not talk to Jarquez. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean. But it is true that whenever you're going through a big transition period like this, people are. I got a message from a parent the other day saying, "What's going on?" Everybody's panicky looking at this. I get it. But like I said, it could be unfounded if we see a bunch of signees in 2 weeks' time. I do admit, yeah, man, it looks really like what's going on. I get it. I totally get it. But I think that, before we flip off the deep end, we've got to let it play out. But definitely the antenna are up. My first inclination when I saw Fahim Delane was, all right, this doesn't pass the smell test now. Now something is going on. That was my original reaction, right? It's exactly what I said to myself. I was texting my buddies Dan and Chad, our little group chat. All right, sit back, think about this. Oh, wait, this is actually the exact same situation as Aaron Scott and Bryce West. Exact same situation, only he's even a year younger. It's a guy who does not make you 100% confident that he is going to be a top-level starter at safety next year, right? However, he commands starter money. Is it better to spend that money on him, or is it better to spend that money on a guy who is in his fourth year, who I know is a solid starter because I can see it on film? In this strategy that they have adopted, I believe it's better to sign that productive guy. And what we're dealing with now is not going to be something we see every year. This is like the purge in the reboot. We're seeing the reboot. And The fact that they're doing it so fast will actually be a good thing next year. The fact that they're not going to go do the half measure and do it a little bit here and a little bit next year. This is the better way to go about it if that's what they're doing. If we don't see the guys signed, it'll be bad news. And I'll be the first one to say it with you. 2 weeks from now, if there aren't guys signed, like if the only thing we see get brought in is another tight end from Northwestern that's visiting, then we got a real flipping problem for sure. Blue Wolverine, thank you so much, man. Appreciate the super chat for $4.99. Very nice of you, my friend. Sean Krutka, for what it's worth, a tweet that said something has to be going on inside the facilities that we don't know about yet was liked by Mylan Graham. Okay, so that's the tweet you're talking about. Hadn't seen that yet. I don't know who said that, but there are some players I take what they say with a grain of salt. I would put Mylan in that category. I'll just put it that way. Richie is where? Thank you so much for the $5, buddy. Richie says, I think people just want to see that Juck that came on right after the Miami loss. Congrats on the 37,000 subs. We hit 37,000. Man, I quit looking. It's stressing me out, dude. I don't even know what's going on. But thank you. Believe me, here's what I did, right? I put to start the show, it was 4:30. I was like, I'm going to give myself a half an hour. And I allowed myself to chill out. You'll get it, man. You will get it if we don't start seeing some action, right? You'll definitely get it if we don't start seeing some action here. Some action better be coming. Without a doubt, there needs to be some action. All right, guys. I'm hungry. It's been an hour. I do appreciate you joining me as always. Always a good time. And we're having some fun, man, aren't we? You know what I always said to my 2 years and 3 months ago, I realized that college football shows weren't just in audio podcast form, but I could watch them on YouTube. And I was like, are you kidding me? Now, I had always wanted to do a college football podcast, right? Always wanted to talk Buckeyes on a podcast, but there are so many like long entrenched, established people in the shows that were done by fans. What I always wanted to do is I wanted to do a show that I would like to watch. And that's kind of how I do the show. Like, what would I like to watch? And that's how I try to do it. Like, I cater it to myself, my own tastes. Not surprisingly, I do the show I would like to watch. But that was 2 years and 3 months ago. Now I've got this pattern. So when it started catching on, I really started enjoying it, like interacting. I really started loving it. And like, man, I love this. And I haven't felt, so I got a pattern where like I get into things and I go all in, whatever it is. Something catches my brain, stimulates, I go all in. Balls to the wall, man. It's what I love. It's what I do. This is one of those things in the course of my life. And then sometimes something happens and I just lose all interest. And I got to tell you, I've never felt so close as I have yesterday. It made me sick to think about coming down and doing something. I hope that's not what's happening here. But I could certainly say that if this is the way it continues to go, it's going to take away a lot of the love that I have for this sport that we as Ohio State fans were able to avoid. It's going to take away a lot of the love for me. And I hope that it's just a brief period of time that we have to go on like this, because this 1 year in and out stuff, it's just not what I love about college football. I've talked a million times about why I love it. I follow these guys from the time they're 16 and hit the scene in high school, and there's 200 of them. And over the course of the next 2 years, it gets whittled down to 30 that are left, and then 24, and those guys become Buckeyes. All right, I've been in on them for 2 years. And I follow those same dudes as Buckeyes till they're 28 years old, retiring in the NFL. And that makes me happy, man. That's how I do it. It's how I've always done it. And this kind of like, okay, here comes Devin McEwen from Nutsack coming in for 1 year at Ohio State. I'll root for him. It'll be fun. Hopefully he's a great player. And off he goes into the NFL. Is that our guy? Is that our guy showing it? No, it's not our guy. You know what I mean? It's different. I hate it. But I also love winning and being competitive. One thing is clear, and one thing that we need to all accept. Until we see collective bargaining, the benefit that we had, the advantage that we had as Ohio State, as Georgia, as Alabama, it's gone. It's gone. There's still some of it. But the built-in advantage that you had being a program like that, it's gone. It's going to take smart moves. It's going to take excellent coaching, still some benefit, but money rules the day in this particular system. And we have seen that now. It's been proven. Money rules the day. That's it. And when we talk about what Ohio State's been built on, the way they've built the roster, the culture, it is still possible to have great culture with this kind of turnover. So that makes me feel good, because when you look at that Indiana team, that is a culture team, right? Those guys love each other. When you look at the Miami team, that's a culture team. Texas Tech, they looked very together. So that still makes me feel good, because I've seen that is possible. When this stuff first started, I thought, if you're flipping out of your 100 guys, 70 new dudes in a year, there's no chance you can get that. But it's happening. Indiana's a 66% transfer squad. Those guys look great together. They love each other. It's also true that Miami, in the way they built their roster, I don't care if the guy that is in the room right now is a second-year guy that could be a potential starter for me, is making $200,000 this year. I don't care if it hurts his feelings if I spend $500,000 on this guy that I really want as a freshman. I don't give a shit. Eventually, guys will wash out, and I'll have the most loaded roster on the lines of scrimmage. And that's exactly what they did. They went out and they paid 5 stars, and they developed them. They started them early, and they didn't give a damn who on their roster got their feelings hurt, because the guy that came in made more money. Didn't care if they left. Goodbye. I'll go get a transfer. Didn't care if it was someone who started. I think this guy's better. He's coming in. They believed in their evaluations. They stuck to their guns. They paid him money to come in as 5 stars. And I really don't want to hear anything about, you can't bring this guy in making more money than this guy that's already doing this on the roster anymore. It's been proven that, yes, you can. You can, and it works. They're in the national championship game. And so long as Ohio State can no longer do it the way they used to do it, the way we'd always loved it, the way I've loved it, all the rules like that, all out the door. I'm much more calloused when it comes to this, and that sucks. I'm much more callous to players, and that sucks. So, but we got a long off season to go, and things will get better. Recruiting coverage is going to be a lot different. Obviously, we'll have to. I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't even going to want to watch recruiting stuff anymore. So that's certainly going to be different, because it's like, what's the difference? I don't even know if this guy's going to be here for year 2 now. Like, it was one thing when it was like, these guys, by the time they're seniors, they're transferring. We're watching Jarquez Carter and Fahim Delane walk out. We didn't talk about BP Miller. Where are you going, BP? What are you doing? What is that about? Unless BP decided he wants to be a quarterback again, I don't have any clue what the hell he's doing. BP Miller, a guy who earned his offer in a camp, freak athlete out of Ontario, awesome quarterback, had an offer from Boston College as a quarterback, decides he wants to be a wide receiver, comes into Ohio State. There's no way he came in asking for more money. So where's he going? What's he doing? I'd love to know. Obviously, a guy never going to see the field at Ohio State till year 3 or 4 anyway. So it's not like it's a big deal to me. It's just like, those are the stories that I love. A guy like that develops year 3, year 4, has the potential to be a disgusting athlete and a great wide receiver with the right tutelage because he's that sick of an athlete. What's he going to do now? I can't wait to see what he does. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know. It's not about money with BP. I know that. I'd love to know his plans. But anyway, that'll be that with that. Anyway, appreciate you guys. We will talk soon. Please like the show. Subscribe if you have not yet. Let's make it official, you and I. As always, have a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Juggling Bucks out.